What is he talking about? So we see explicitly, that the prophets condone the rabbinic laws that are not in the Bible at all.
So there's a question from Curtis. Are practices such as using specific kitchen utensils for certain foods, wrapping tefillin 7 times, wearing a kippah, the order of lighting candles, and the designated times for candle lighting in violation of the commandment in Deuteronomy 4:2, as these actions are not directly prescribed in the Torah? Can these practices be considered new commandments of men or Jewish fables?
That's a good question. So they are new commandments of man. However, it's a very big however, it is forbidden to say that God commanded us to do these things. It's very simple. People make things that are very simple, very complicated. Let me give you an example. It's forbidden to engage in business practices on the Sabbath. Buying and selling is forbidden on Shabbat. And in fact, the Jews who returned to the land of Israel to build a second temple, not all of them were very religious. And they were excoriated, they were criticized in Nehemiah chapter 10 and chapter 13 because they were not observing the laws of Shabbos. Well, if we're not allowed to engage in commerce on the Sabbath, can I say that, you know what, if I'm not going to engage in business on the Shabbat, I just am not going to touch money on the Sabbath. So touching money, I'm taking that as an example. So the Jews we don't touch money on the Sabbath. They don't touch it. But that's not a commandment in the Torah. But we're saying that because we're not allowed to engage in business, we take it upon ourselves not to touch money. That you're allowed to do. Let's say you live in whatever, Amsterdam, wherever, right? Let's say you decide, I don't want to go into the red light district in Holland. I'm sure many of them. You can't say the Torah says it's forbidden to go there. There is no prohibition like that in the Torah. But you're allowed to say, I don't want a person like me who's a godly person does not belong in a marijuana store or a coffee shop, whatever they have there in Holland. Why? You're not allowed to say the Torah says I'm not allowed to do that, but you're allowed to say, I don't want to do it. I want to stay away from that. So therefore, a yarmulke, right? So this is a custom. It's a custom. That's all. The yarmulke comes from the words Yoreh Me'elikim. Men have taken it upon themselves to cover their head. Yoreh Me'elikim, Fear Hashem. I'm allowed to do it. I'm just not allowed to say that God commanded me not to go into a marijuana store. I'm not allowed to say that, but you can say, I'm going to be careful. I'm not going to even go near that. I'm not going to touch money. But you're not allowed to say that I'm not touching money because God, it says from the Torah, that would be forbidden. And that's what the Torah is saying. You can't add to it. You are certainly allowed to, and the Torah actually says that you should guard my commandments. So really, it's not only inferred, it's conveyed in the Bible, in the Torah, that you should put a guard around the Torah. And we do that. And that the tefillin is wrapped 7 times. Well, if you don't wrap it 7 times, you still fulfill the commandment. But 7 times represents a number of perfection. But we're not allowed to say that God commanded us to keep these customs. However, God does, it's a little tricky, but God does give the judges authority. We see that in Deuteronomy. So, and Torah tells us that we have to follow the judges unless it's a corrupt court. So we actually have that in Tanakh. And moreover, I'll tell you this, if you want to shut the door on this, this will blow your mind away, really blow your mind away, but we have rabbinic customs in Tanakh mentioned by the prophets. as an example, in Zechariah chapter 7, Zechariah was the greatest rabbi of the generation. He lived during the Persian Empire. And he is asked, do we have to still fast Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of the 5th month? That's the question he's asked. And as you can imagine, Zechariah was not happy with that question. Because you have to remember, the 5th month fast is not biblical. It's not biblical at all. But it commemorated the destruction of the first temple. It was destroyed on the 9th day of the 5th month, which is Av, Tisha B'Av. So he's asked, now that we're building the second temple, do we still have to fast on the 5th month? Because we're building a second temple, right? And he didn't like that question at all. And he didn't say, you're following made-up, added commandments. He said, do you think God cares if you fast or not? The fasting is for you to make yourself better. Now, here's where I want to point you in a direction. He will continue answering this question into the next chapter, chapter 8. It's very famous because he says, days are coming, saith the Lord, that yet old men and old women be walking through the streets of Jerusalem with their canes, children playing on the streets of Jerusalem. And look at chapter 8, verse 19. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the fast of the 4th month, the fast of the 5th month, the fast of the 7th month. Well, we know what that might be. And the fast of the 10th month. Well, what is he talking about? Those are rabbinic fasts. Will be turned into times of joy. So if you look at Zechariah 8:19, it really pays to look at this. This really will change your life. If you look at Zechariah 8:19. So the prophet is pointing to rabbinic fasts that are non-biblical. And he doesn't say, why are you adding to the law? No, he says that these fast days, one day, will be times of joy, which answers the original question that ultimately, when there's a final redemption, all the fast days will be days of joy. What is he talking about? So we see explicitly, that the prophets condone the rabbinic laws that are not in the Bible at all. You just are not allowed to say that the fast of the 10th month or the fast of the 4th month is from God. You're not allowed to say that. But there's nothing in the Bible that says that you cannot say, I'm not going to go to Las Vegas because God commanded. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm not going to Vegas because I don't think a godly person belongs there. You just probably shouldn't say that the Torah says that. Okay, so be very careful. Of course, there are prohibitions and customs that developed, but we don't say those customs are from God. Are they godly? Yes. Do they bring us to think about things that really matter? When we drop a Torah on the floor, a printed Bible, okay, we pick it up and kiss it. There's no commandment like that, but it does convey to every person. They drop a holy book on the floor, you kiss it. Why? The book needs a kiss? Doesn't. But it conveys that this is a holy thing. That's all. So thank you for your thoughtful question. If you enjoyed this program, please like and subscribe.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא עובד